All right, we're going to look at limits a little bit on the calculator and get used to the calculator. First of all, the document side is the better side of the calculator. Scratchpad doesn't work as well. I like documents because you can save all of your problems. If you have a question, you can come bring it in. Different things. What is my calculator doing? No problem. And it saves your work up to a point. So what you do is you go Control Docs, and that will give you this menu here. Then it will pop up with this. And then if you want to add graphs, we can add graphs. Now I've already typed in the example 8 from section 1.2 for BC Calculus. And so there it is. And so that's the function that I want to put in. So you can type that, and the caret up will give you the exponents and all that if you're not used to this calculator. Make sure that you group the numerator in parentheses and the denominator in parentheses, and that will be better. Now what they're asking for is the limit as x approaches 1. Well, if you look at 1 right here, this looks like a vertical asymptote. We'd have to factor and cancel to see what's going on here. But what happens is that we can reduce this down a little bit, and we'll find out that we can cancel right here at the 2. So we'll go to another page. So I just go and go Control, and I want to add a page. So I do that right there, and I want to add a calculator for this. And so what I can do is I can say factor, and then I want my F1 that I'm going to be factoring. And so when I do that, there's the factor. Now the other thing is that I want to evaluate this now at 1 and -1. Well, it's in factored form. It's very easy to see what happens when I plug in 1. This numerator does not factor, so if I plug in 1, I'm going to get undefined in the denominator. Undefined in the denominator gives me my vertical asymptote. That's why I have the vertical asymptote right here. Vertical asymptote means that the behavior as x approaches 1 will go to infinity or -infinity. In this case, it does both of those things. So back to this, we can factor. Now at 2, we have a hole. How do I know that? Well, if I go here, I can set up a table of values. And the table of values will tell me kind of what's going on. So I'm going to go Menu, and I'm going to go Table. And I'm going to do a split screen table here. Now these aren't exactly the values that, well, these are the 2 values that I want, but I want to look closer in there. So when you're in here, you go to Menu, and it says Table, and I want to edit table settings. If you want to plug in values, you go to the independent and you press ask. Nothing there. So that's what's happening. So if I go 0.99, I'm getting closer and closer to 1. 0.9999999. As you can see, I'm going off to infinity as I get closer and closer there. Similarly, if I go this way, or I go 1.001, and so either way, this one's going to -infinity as I get close to 1. This one's going to positive infinity as I get close to 1. That tells me a lot. Now if I plug in 2, well, 2 is undefined. Well, what happens as we get close? So I can go 1.999, and that tells me I get there 2.00001. What does it look like I approached? Well, it does look like I approached 1/3. So on my graph, if I look here, it looks like at 2, it's 1/3. However, there is a hole in the graph because that value did get removed. How do we find the exact value? Sometimes you can just look at the table and figure it out, but the real way to find the exact value is by just going here and saying, okay, I want to take this function. Now here's a slick feature of the calculator. You can take this function and you can evaluate. So you go Control equal. This bar right here means evaluate. So I want to evaluate this at x equal to 2. Boom, that tells me that it is exactly 1/3. This is the reduced form after I factored and canceled, and then this is the 1/3 that I do get. I hope that introduces you a little bit to the calculator. Once again, I like the doc side better. You can get these different pages, and you can just use the arrows to switch back and forth. Like that. There you go. Okay. All right, thank you very much. This is hopefully a quick introduction to the calculator and limits.